Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through CFO, accounting, and tax services. Now, first and foremost, if you can't tell, sinuses is making me sound like whoever. So sorry about that. But when you have good guests coming on, you got to do what you got to do. Speaking of which, the guests. So I told y'all this is season 2. We're focusing on people who are on their journeys to having already hit $1 million in their agency or more, and just really picking their brains and seeing, like, what did you do to get there? How did you stay balanced? What are some different things you can tell the rest of us to not forget or keep in mind? And, I've joined some coaching programs, some masterminds. And this guy, I don't know if he was assigned to me specifically. I personally like to think so. I'm not saying that that's the case. But I talk to him, I ain't going to say every day, but a lot throughout the week, because he's helped me so much in regards to getting my systems together or more defined, or SOPs, or thinking more big picture and seeing the steps, 5 steps in advance. And that's what we're building towards, because he's done it himself. So, ladies and gentlemen, Sarge is here. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you. That's a really cool intro. Thank you for that.
We try to personalize it, try to make it feel good. All right. Now, I know who you are, but tell the people name of the companies, what you do, how you help them, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Richard Sargent. I started my own agency about 8 years ago. Been in the marketing game for over 20 years now, so it's cool to say that, because up in like year 18, 19, it's kind of like I'm almost 20 years into this. Over 20 years now, so it's absolutely amazing. Sold my first agency, which was a cool experience, very new to learn. It wasn't just turn it over. Second agency, I got bored, so I started another agency. But at the same time as starting the agency, the group that helped me, called Prospecting on Demand, get into coaching and do it better, asked me to come back as brand ambassador, coach, and now head of client success, all within less than a year span. So now helping out coaching agencies, and that's how we actually got together. And if I can just point out one thing really quick, when it comes to the return report that you and I have, is basically I look at it as a reward system. If you're putting in the work, you get rewarded with more time. If you're not putting in the work, and that's just something like I look at for everyone, even team members that I have. But this has been an amazing journey on the agency. I call it a season of coaching, since I'm learning more from others as well. So I'm also benefiting from this. But when it comes just to agencies, it's just how are we serving others? And so in the season I'm in now with my agency as well as coaching, is just I'm out of the day-to-day in my own agency. So how do I keep building the systems operations to help coach and mentor my own agency? And so it's been a rewarding thing, but I've had to learn, I'll just share a couple things up front. Patience, understanding, and better systems are like the 3 things that I've been focusing on. So it's been absolutely cool.
Okay, see, I told y'all already off rip. He's sneaking them in there. And we're not going to talk about his love for tacos, because we all know that tacos are undefeated. See, there you go right there if you're watching the video. All right, now let's back this up. So you said 20 years in marketing. So can you kind of paint a picture for us as somebody who's been in it for 20 years? There's a lot of changes that have happened in the last 5, let alone the last 20. Mm-hmm. So what are maybe some similarities and differences from 20 years ago to now that you're seeing, like, yeah, that's completely out, versus like, no, those are core principles that still matter and make you money today?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of marketing, there's a lot of people that are new and cutting edge and like very hippie and trending. I consider myself more of like a traditionalist, old fashioned, and there's like a book behind me, like The Breakthrough of Advertising. At the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, it still has to channel the demand that's already there and solve problems. So like at a core principle of everything that we're doing, I have to go back to those principles, because sometimes people are like, oh, let's install AI into thing, but we actually find out it does nothing to solve an actual problem. And the 2 problems I like to solve is, are we making them more money or saving them time on there? So from those principles alone, that's where my brain has been like channeled towards, is just focusing on that. Now, I do want to back up. In the last 20 years, we do a kind of a high overview. I was told in college that marketing will be billboards and print and all these different things. What they didn't know is in college, Facebook came out and I got Facebook access and I saw what the power of the world can achieve. I did Google ads when it was a penny a click. I wanted to drive down to Mountain View because I was only 2 hours away from Mountain View for Google, like Google's headquarters, when cost per clicks for Google ads became 10 cents. There are some keywords we pay for right now for clients that's $30 to $50 a click. So you can imagine seeing that progression of life happen. The other one that's also happened that's pretty important in the last 20 years is I remember Google Analytics when they added this thing called mobile. And we're like, what are you talking about mobile? I remember when websites didn't have mobile features, right? They weren't mobile ready or anything else. And I have a Google Analytics account from 2008 and still today. Well, they had to transition it, but we still have some of the data. And we started seeing these little blimps of mobile happen when the iPhone came out, when all these other phones come out. And then now most of the experiences are mobile first, being like over 80% of our clients are having their phones on mobile, right? And so like just living through these and providing that wisdom goes back to the tried and true principles that matter the most. So if you talk to me right now, I'm not going to come with the newest training of, hey, did you see what came out yesterday in an article? I want to know how can I serve the majority of the audience, not the early adopters is my focus when it comes to all of this.
Okay, see, I told y'all, man knows his stuff. Okay, so we got channel the demand that's already there and solve problems. And now everything is over 80% mobile first. Now, one of the things you just slid in there real casual, you said you sold your first agency. First off, what was the first agency? Who did it help? And then we'll come back after that. So tell us about that first one.
Yeah, so I kind of slide that in there, just like, I just sold an agency, no big deal. Cool story. My first agency was actually born, and it's cool because I'm actually having a second child, right? Not publicly announced, maybe in 2 weeks, so won't go public with this yet. But yeah, you're like, what's going on? But when we had our first daughter 7 years ago, I was working at another agency. I was like the sales and marketing director. The day after having our daughter, they said, hey, congrats on having a daughter. Can you jump on a sales call? Right? And I was like, no, I'm in the hospital. Like, this is such a cool moment, our first kid and everything else. And they're like, okay, cool, but still jump on the call and close the deal or else, right? So they kind of give me the or else consequence, right? I then made that decision like, hey, I got to find something better. Took me about 6 months, but I was offering them something and they said no. I basically took that 32-page plan to my former employer and said, well, I'm going to go do this, which was to start a paid ad agency. We did website development for WordPress, like $15,000 to $60,000 builds. We're selling them all day long. But after some of them got built. So my first agency was a paid ads agency, Google ads and Facebook ads, which Facebook ads still in 2015, 2016 was still pretty new and hit, right? Not everyone was doing it yet. And some people are going to listen to this like, oh, I was doing back in 2012. So but we weren't offering as like a big core service. And so we were pretty cutting edge, it felt like. While doing that first agency was doing really well. We served a lot of clients in different industries. I think total industries we had count of was 35 industries, right? So it was a crazy, chaotic industry. Our highest that we hit at one point, I think we hit like 80K for 6 months. And it was absolutely crazy. But the operations and process wasn't there. It was all built off my vision and chaos, for the record, right? So very transparent on that. But what happened is one of our clients, which a real estate investor, came in and said, hey, we really like what you're doing. What's your vision with this? By the way, my vision, which is to keep doing what I'm doing month to month, I had no really crazy vision. So I really thought about that. We had lunch and I said, and still my secret strategy today. What I want to build an agency for is that when I go invest into like a franchise company, I always use the example of a carpet cleaners. I want to go buy a carpet cleaners, buy a truck, put an operator in there and know how to advertise that carpet cleaning business. If I can learn how to acquire a customer through marketing, everything else, then I can scale that and buy multiple locations. So that's why I started a marketing agency from way back in the day, right? They said, that's a really cool concept, right? And they're a client at this time, right? But we started talking over and they were local to me. We started talking through that. And they said, hey, do you want to know something? You only know one of our companies. Do you know we invest in actually 70 different portfolio companies right now? And I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that. And they said, we actually want to start our own internal marketing agency, but we don't want to start from scratch. We're potentially looking at buying a couple others or just buying one. What are your thoughts on selling yours? And by the way, that was never the goal. My goal was to keep my own agency until I'm 80 and beyond, right? I never built it to sell. And so they came with more financial aspects and everything else, and they kind of ruined me there because I didn't know how much I was paying in like software costs. I thought that was normal. I thought 4,000 in monthly software costs is normal. That's not, by the way. We got it down to 400, so that was crazy. So that was profit right there. But going back to it was a 2-year period that was on the letter of intent for me to sell my agency. And what happens is they knew going into this in due diligence that I didn't have tons of processes. And so here's what happens. When I went to go sell that agency, they said, hey, we can go and buy this agency from you right now and turn it over to us, but it's only worth, and it was less than $250,000. It wasn't worth that much because they said all the processes live here, right? They said, but if we download this in the next 2 years, this agency has a valuation of over $1 to $2 million. So we're not talking like $10 million agencies and everything else, but the run rate was really well. And they said, you have a high lifetime value of clients. You have a lot of clients that you've kept, but we need to build up more systems and processes. So before selling my agency, that's what really got me so keen. And now you're seeing the after effects of this. But before that, SOPs and everything else were a nightmare for me. I would never do that. Why? I knew how to do it. What else mattered? Right? But I never delegated it to others. I had to tribally teach them how to do it. But here's the thing. I would teach people how to do that. If they ever left, so did my SOP because I taught just that person. It didn't live within the organization. So I spent 2 years and then another 5 months out, no, another 6 months. So 2.5 years downloading and building out the SOPs for them. Another point about selling the agency is that as I went and sold the agency, it took 6 full-time roles to replace me. What that means is I was doing 6 full-time roles poorly. It doesn't mean I was Superman doing 6 times the work. It means I was trying to hold on 6 things myself versus hand that off on there. And so that journey was probably the most painstaking. I did go through burnout, but at the same part, I learned like, what does it really look like to build something bigger than yourself? And so now that's my passion is how do I help something bigger than myself grow? That if I was to be there or not be there, it can thrive without me. So that's my mission now is just how can I build that with anything I do?
Okay, sir.
Good luck unpacking that one.
I mean, you said, I love this. I was doing 6 full-time roles poorly. And I think the other piece you said was the first valuation was at about 250 grand when it should have been 1 to 2 million, all because the processes were here and not written out with people in place. So I think we should stay there because you know this from coaching. You literally probably help me with this every single day at this point, including myself. Why is it so hard to increase your valuation and not do these things? Because to your point, I'm making 80 grand, at least times 5 should do good. But then they're literally telling you, which shout out to them because they could have just tried to play you and be like, oh yeah, sure. Why is it so hard for us to create these systems and these SOPs and train these other people?
Yeah. So if you want to go down the rabbit hole, which I'll give you a little sneak peek on there, right? What was our examples of learning how to do that from others? I didn't have examples how to do this, right? So if you look at any aspect of life on there, and like, so I won't go too deep on this, right? I'll keep it business centered. But if you think about that, it's by past experiences of how we got here. I never had that. And so my goal is to kind of break those molds in life and help people understand. Because here's the thing. There's team members on my team right now that are shining stars. But at some point, they're going to be alumni on there. And I might put them and name one of our rooms in our office, their name, even when they leave, right? Because they're going to do so well. But I want to help them to achieve that. I'm not trying to keep people stuck with me and what I'm doing. But how can I help build that as a bigger goal for what we're doing? Because no one taught me how to do this. So how do I break that mold for the next generation of the workforce out there, or the people building stuff, right? How did they learn how to delegate and communicate effectively to others while I'm still learning how to do this myself?
Okay. Now go back to this when you said I was doing 6 full-time roles, but I was doing them poorly. And I think we get so caught up in, I'm sales, I'm marketing, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the accounting, I'm the tech, I'm HR. Tell us why that thought process is not good for your business, especially if you're thinking about selling.
Because if you're doing 6 things, so like of the 6 roles, it was, of course, like CEO, but it's also project manager, customer service. I took all the phone calls when they're coming in. I didn't send them to my salespeople or anyone else. I was also taking the notes. I was also putting in the task. I was selling. I was closing. I was setting appointments. Did I have other people in some of those roles? Yes. But was I putting them fully responsible for those things? No, on there. Why? Because who can do it better than me? It sounds very ego, but it was more of a micromanagement, not able to trust because they don't have the processes. I didn't teach them. So whose fault was it? It was my fault for them not having the processes. So how do I coddle and helicopter my team to doing that? Which, by the way, is not the smart thing to do, but that's all I knew how to do because that's what was done for me. Right? If Richard, so what did I have to do to get to this point of being an owner, right? Which anyone could start, right? I get that. But to get to an owner, I had to take over someone else's role and basically play king of the hill with them and dominate that role and in very competitive market to be at the top, right? So it's not the corporate ladder where you work your way up. It feels like the Wild West in the agency world, but like how I got to be the sales director was sell the most things, right? Now, the hard part is the best seller doesn't make the best director for the record, right? We all get that. But that's what I got. And so then what happens is also kind of like the best player doesn't become the best coach. But I flipped from player to coach in my first agency that I worked at, didn't even own. And when that happened is I was like, all right, well, just work harder, do cool things, watch this movie. Like I didn't know how to coach others. I didn't know how to make them me. But what got me to that level wasn't what's going to get me to the next level. And that was really hard for me to accept even today. What got me here won't get me to the next level. What do I have to change and what do I have to let go? And I have a hard part of letting go of that stuff that I need to change.
What got me here won't get me there.
Mm-hmm.
Continual self-improvement. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual sale. So this guy gives you the hidden secret. You can either give it to us now, we pay you like $250, or we can give you a two-way run rate. You build this thing even better, and we give you more. So clearly you chose the latter.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, what are some of the things that you had to make sure, in addition to the systems, to get that higher evaluation? Because a lot of people, this, man, I want to sell my company for $1 million. It's one thing for me as the CFO to say it. It's another one for somebody who's now on agency 2, that he's not even in the day-to-day and coaching 50 to 100 other people to say it. So you tell them, so that way they won't just be like, I'm tripping.
Absolutely. So it wasn't a lump sum up front. What happens, they said, we know these things aren't built out, so we want to take 2 years, but basically double your pay and revenue of guaranteed income. But we also want to get you this thing called quarterly distributions. First time hearing it, for the record. By the way, I'm now like 12 to 15 years of my career, and that's the first time I'm hearing quarterly distributions. First time hearing about a K1 and all these different things, right? Which, by the way, your stuff that you do, I love what you do, but it's not my skill set, right? And so I was like, explain it like I'm 5 to me with this stuff. But what ended up happening, they said, well, there's a couple things you have to do. You have to download the business in the next 2 years, and here's the plan. You have to stick to it. We're going to double your guaranteed income, which was amazing, by the way. And so that was part of the payout as well. And then whatever's left over is a lump sum. The other thing that also happened is in the final 6 months before I walked away, like the final finish line, was the best 6 months of sales I've ever had out there. So I didn't go in selling a company because it was a 2-year period. So it wasn't turn the key in 90 days, it sold over. It took a 2-year transition. And there was also an option in their place to not be CEO, as more like a business development role, to stay within my own agency that I sold. But I opted out of that on there. You know what I mean? And so they said, hey, you're going to opt out. That's totally fine. Can you take an additional 5 to 6 months to hand off the last bit things on there? And then I still have an open door policy to where if they need anything, they can hire me back as a consultant. That's happened a couple times in the past year and a half, right? But overall, they're good to go. I still see their stuff online. They did rebrand. They did a lot of other stuff, right? But man, they're doing so many good things. And so what did that teach me? A sense of self and belief of what can I do to be better on there.
Okay. So how you structure is important, and make sure there's clarity on you leaving so that you're not in this weird space or should I help or not? Just make it super clear. So that way it's okay to be the consultant and come back when needed, but to be in that weird zone, don't do that to yourself. Okay.
Yeah. If I can mention one thing really quick about the weird zone, the final 6 months, the only person I could talk to, I had view access if everything is still going on, but I can only talk to one person as a mouthpiece. And when they delivered it, they're like, oh man, that person's so smart, but I knew it was me, but I couldn't say that. because I was on the outside looking in, as if like you only can whisper to that one person, right? And so that was really weird because I stopped receiving the accolades for the good ideas that I was still providing. It went to somebody else who I was training and everything else, and for my ego that was hurting, for the record. So I just wanted to make sure that was there. It was an awkward transition that like messed with me mentally, but at the end I understand why. Because here's the thing, I'm selling off. They still want to run this. There's no sunset, farewell, goodbye. There's no retirement tour for me. This is a, hey, can you see yourself out the back door? And we're not going to announce it to anyone else. Awkward.
Oh, because at this, you put somebody in place of CEO.
Mhm.
So they only figured out you were gone when you just didn't show up to the meetings and stuff anymore.
Yeah, which they said, hey, they did say effective end date is this date and everything else, right? Hey, if you want to talk to Richard, here's his email going out and everything else. But we're assuming on this date that all clients and everything else will report to this person instead. You know what I mean? So there was a notice, but it wasn't a notice that you'll never talk to Richard again in this company. You know what I mean? Some people did reach out and we talked afterwards and everything else, right? Which is cool. But at the same time, there was no like going away party, retirement party. This was a backdoor sell the company off style, right? Which was, and that was clear up front to me, by the way. And I agreed to it, but I didn't understand the effects of it. Because I was, for their longest time, I built myself as their king and their leader. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm the greatest and everything else. Well, what point is when you're the behind the door, not the great leader anymore? You know what I mean? And so I was
how
like,
did you deal with this? I'm so intrigued. So you go from being top guy, I'm Batman, to now I'm just supposed to be Alfred, make sure you good, and then I'm just supposed to go out back.
yeah, and
Like,
here's the hardest part too. While I went through that, I also moved another state that I've never lived in before. So I went through a lot of transitions in life. And so like I went through and I'm now in therapy, right? Not because of that, for other stuff, but like that's also a thing that I talk about because I would mask how I felt. I always put on the face of everything's perfect and good. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm great at everything. I'm good. Life is good. Life is good. But I wasn't honest about that. But there is a lot of I will call it situational depression towards that, about selling a company, moving, not have my support network, can't just call up my buddies down the street to go get tacos or anything else, right? Like everything in my life changed, right? And I didn't admit it for like the first year that life is completely different. I was like, life is good. We're good. We're good. We're good. And I was like, this kind of sucks, right? And so that's something that I never communicated even to my wife or my family or anyone else. And then when I learned how to do that, like to say the words I feel are the two hardest words for me to say. I feel, and then anything else afterwards. So,
okay, this is good because a lot of people don't talk about this, especially in the business world. So now,
yeah,
okay, you putting on the brave face, but I know there's one person who's like, you not fooling me, buddy.
yeah.
And so how did she take this or how did she help you through this? Because to your point, I feel is not in the man dictionary. It's just not.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. So how did she come in and play a role? Because I know you're going to be like, she came through. But what did that look like in case somebody right now is either going through, hey, I'm about to sell it, or hey, I was CEO, but now I'm just a background shareholder, and they're struggling with those adjustments.
Yeah. I think the hardest adjustment is I built life around me versus building life around business or family or anything else. And so, like, when I removed myself or my identity from that, that was the hardest thing to do. The thing is that my wife is super loving and supportive, but she didn't know how to tell me no in certain situations. I knew how to frame or control situations versus I got asked a question in a therapy session. Hey, what would it be like to be married to you? Would it be exhausting or would it be fruitful? Fudge. You want to know how hard I cried? I cried. Yeah, that's the hardest question I heard, right? And I am upfront about this. I want to be an advocate of mental health, ADHD, everything else around that, right? Because I never realized my self-awareness over the top every single time. But when that stuff started playing and I started listening and understanding more of what it was like, honestly, I feel like I get a second chance at life with all these things happening now. And so through the transition of business, life, and everything else, I'm now in a season of just gratitude of understanding, like, what does it take to really be a better man in life? Husband, father, everything.
So, dang. That reminds me of what my wife said, because it's to your point, like, it ain't that they didn't want to help, but they didn't quite know how to, because my wife said all the time, like, yesterday, I had to make these choices, which I'll tell you about later.
Yes.
And she says that I fixed it on my own instead of being willing to come and lean on her so we could work through it together as a team. And I'm just like, I didn't want to just sit there in it for the whole day. Like, I had my moment, okay, prayed about it, sat still, got quiet, and then made my choice to move. So this is the stuff we don't talk about.
Yeah, and this is the stuff that I want to be on the topic of, like, if people can get to this level of understanding, then you can learn from it. Because the other thing I bring up, and where I give more patience to others along with myself, is where were we taught this to have these emotions or communications that are uncomfortable sometimes? Where did we learn how to make decisions together? Where did we learn, like, because in my family, and I won't get too personal on here, but like, I didn't see my dad cry until 18, until he went through something pretty bad. You know what I mean? And then when he did, I was like, hey, you got to stop crying, fool. We don't cry. Men don't cry. You know what I mean? I was pissed at him for crying. You know what I mean? But that's how we grew up. And so now looking at this, and I'm grateful to have a daughter first, because I learned a softer side, and she is highly in tune with her emotions, and she's able to communicate them, right? And then here's dad over here masking any troubles or anything else and not sharing, all through the journeys of business and everything else. When we went through hard times and pandemics and all these different things, I took it all on my shoulders and didn't allow her to have an opportunity to help solve it. But you know how many times I come up with 100 ways to solve something, and she'll think for 5 minutes, and her solution is the best solution out there? And all she did was process through it. So if I don't work through my wife on these decisions that affect her and family and everything else, I'm not giving her an opportunity to shine. I'm really diminishing what she can do on there. And I'm telling you right now, if I take the last 10 decisions we made for her family, 9 times out of 10, they're hers. But I will hold on to that 1 out of 10. I'm like, that 1 out of 10 is shiny for me. You know what I mean? Because 9 out of 10 is she's just like throwing down amazing every time. And so why am I going to make decisions on my own? If they affect both of us or more.
That's just a free love, marriage and family therapy for y'all right there. He just trying to help you. This is why we bring them on. Okay. All right. We went there for a second. Now all right. So we moved to a new state, starting to work through these things. And now you get the idea or the itch to start number 2. So we start agency number 2. You immediately say, these are the things that I'm doing different. What are they?
Yeah, first things first, not be the leader on anything I do in terms of like the responsibilities of prospecting, selling, everything else. I started putting other virtual assistants and other team members in those spots and coaching them right away. This is even before coaching in an agency setting. So when I went to go, the only reason I would ever start my own agency again was for the premise of, how do I build an agency again that doesn't rely on me day to day? So it's not that I figured out how to do this, but when I figured out how to close deals or sell and like redid this, is I had to rebuild those processes, but know that once I like got really good at it, I wanted to put someone else in that place. So I didn't build the agency around me again. I got other team members in place and like learn how to, and I'm still not the best at hiring. If they say they like doing it, then I usually hire those people. I'm learning how to be better at that. But I would put other people on those places and see them thrive and then encourage them to win on there. And so that's probably the hardest part for me on the second round is I thought I can spin up and make 10, 20, 30K by myself in like 30 days or less. But I was like, that's cool to do. And that's an accolade that would sound great. But how can I build 20 to 30, 40K with having other team members doing it? That was a bigger win for me. Like, and I'll share one example, and I think you'll resonate with this and other people listening to this as well. The most proud moment in business for me is when Richard didn't get the prospect, didn't get the lead, didn't close the deal. Someone else did all 3 of those things, onboarding the person, and the person gave us a positive testimonial. That person that's one of our clients doesn't know who I am. It's like watching your kids walk for the first time in a business setting is how it felt to me. That my team was able to do the full process and get a glowing freaking testimonial from this person. Richard was not involved whatsoever, and they're celebrating the wins, and we're celebrating with them. That to me is a far bigger win than me closing the deal. Because I thought the peak and pinnacle was closing deals and seeing clients win and being the one that talked to clients. I just jumped into a team meeting today with a client, right? There are 10 meetings into this project, and I just jumped in for like a final technical questions and like sign off, right? And that's my first time seeing anyone in this meeting or meeting the people on the team, not my team, but like the client's team. And they just spent half the call giving praise to our team. And I says, I'm glad you get to see what I get to see every day, that you get a glimpse of the team members that I get to see every day, and I'm proud of them. And I kid you not, one of my team members from Venezuela felt like he was tearing up. It was just like an absolutely amazing experience. I want to create more of those opportunities in life. How do I do more of that?
Not be the leader on anything I do and build it around other people once the method is perfected. And this required me to let go of my ego.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go here because a lot of people are stuck here. You know this because you're coaching them.
Yeah.
What are some ways they can do? We'll just keep it simple to do what you're doing in company too. What are some tips you can give that marketing agency owner is who, hey, I know this idea works. I know we can help them, but I don't want y'all to make that mistake. So make sure you do.
Yes, perfect. And I have it pulled up right here for you. I give credit to Dan Martell for this, for Buy Back Your Time and other books that he has. But he shared something called Teach, Not Tell. Now, I'm going to give how nerdy I am right now. I saw a TikTok video on Teach, Not Tell. I saved the video. I uploaded it to my Loom video. I grabbed the transcription, then wrote out the SOP for that with the prompt, right? And here's what the prompt basically does. If I see something wrong in my agency, which here's my notes of everything that I saw wrong, right, in my agency, I have to prioritize what's most important and then build training for my team so I don't repeat myself on here. So if I see something wrong, I build a training and then coach or teach the training or give them the training resources so that they can go and do this. The other aspect is the one question I ask as a stakeholder in my agency to the people that report to me, which is only 2 people that report to me out of my agency of 10 plus. What are the top 3 trainings that you need from me right now that I can be focused and working on for you? So just because I see something that's wrong and want to build a training for it, I show them the list of stuff that I can train on or go build out. They give me the top 3, so I focus on their needs first. I don't go build a training just because I think it's the most important thing. I go build what they need. And as I build what they need and train on what they need, it will live there forever, as long as it's relevant.
All right. Those are your 3 ways. Teach, don't just answer the question. And see, I'm guilty of this, so I'm going to just raise my hand. Because it's so easy to just be like, oh, hey, so-and-so asked this question. I went on and answered. Nope. Hey, when they ask a question like this, what they're really trying to get at is this. We need to be forward thinking and blah, blah, blah. What are the top 3 trainings you need from me? And let those be what your manager level or C-suite level people are telling you they want versus just, this is what I think you need to fix. Here, do it. So I think those are super, super key. All right. Let's stay right here on company 2. So how do I want to ask this question? The $1 million agency figure mark, news flash, award show, etc. You've done it. You've seen it. You built it. You're probably on the 2nd time you've done it. Common mistakes you see people making that are trying to get there, but they don't even realize they're doing it. Like, I just joined POD or personal one-on-one coaching with you. I've told you all my business, let you see everything. I want to make $1 million. The first things that you're seeing that are pretty consistent are what that's stopping them from getting there.
3 things. You ready for this? A sense of belief that they can actually do it. Their mindset towards it is a scarcity versus abundance is the first thing I see. The second one would be their productivity level. And I'm not saying they have to be efficient every minute, but they have to be focused most of the time, right? So I'm not setting a high precedence of what they're doing on there. But as they're focusing on the productivity and so forth, it's one of those 2 things. The third thing is a way of masking one of those 2 things. So they'll give me an excuse why they're not doing it or what they're not seeing, but it comes down to one of those 2 root beliefs. Are they staying focused and in their zone of genius, or are they playing out of bounds with what they're doing in their day? Are they working on something that's not important and not urgent on there? And do they have the belief in 2 things, that they can do what they can do best and that their team members can do the same on there? It comes back to those 2 core principles. I say a third one because people like to make something cheesy. I'll use one example for you. Dave Ramsey, right? Out there, he has his baby steps and everything else. For the longest time, I don't know if he's still doing it or not, he would do like 3-hour calls every day. The questions were the same questions, but why did people call in asking the same questions? Because they thought it was personal to them, but it came down to simple principles on there. But why would he keep doing those 3-hour calls? It's the same thing when people come to you saying, hey, I have this issue. Like I had a call today where someone's like, hey, I have this big issue that I don't think you've ever heard before. You know what it came down to? A sense of belief in his conviction and confidence is what we got it down to, is what needed the fix. And he walked away saying, I'm thankful that you said that because I thought I was trying to handle something that I could not see. And that's impossible, right? So now that he understands what he can work on and do, he can now move forward and take action on it. And he even ended with a smile, which is cool. Sometimes it's hard to give people smiles when you're telling them some pretty hard truths. I can see that.
But okay, let's hit all 4 of these. Belief they can actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't that person who's telling you, they believe, or maybe not?
No.
Okay,
no.
So just I want to make $1 million.
They have a hope and a dream to make it, but they don't believe because they've never seen it in themselves. There is one example where someone said, hey, go buy $10,000 of fake money off of Amazon. You know what happened when I had $10,000 of fake money on Amazon? It made me uncomfortable when I did that because I didn't believe that I could make $10,000 in a day. So it sitting there made me uncomfortable. I would be sitting on sales calls asking for $4,000 for marketing, which included ad spend and everything else. So it was a really good deal back then. I would stutter at saying $4,000 until my coach would sit there and be like, hey, do you know you stutter when you talk about price? I went through 12 years of an agency, never known that I stuttered when I talk about price. So what I had to do is I had to get comfortable with counting out $4,000, holding in my hand and knowing with conviction that what I'm going to do is going to help them to make more money. The crazy part about this is the social proof was there. Everything was lined up. You know what wasn't lined up? My sense of belief on every single time. So when I knew that and I had conviction behind that, it became, hey, it's only $4,000 with the return on investment of X. This is what we're looking to do. I know that you should do this. We should move forward. And they're like, I agree. Let's go. Let's move forward. Deal's done right there on a one call close. Right. But before that, this guy he fumbled that and everything else. And just subliminally, like, he's not confident in $4,000. That's probably the first time he's ever offered that. Why am I getting charged $4,000? Set it for 20 calls, but stumbled through. Sold a couple of them, right? But there's a lot of them that I didn't close because my conviction and belief wasn't there. I was scared of money.
I was scared of money. Wow. Okay. Number 2 reason you said was productivity. And I can laugh at this one because you got me doing this exercise right now. There's a program called Mem Time. So if y'all want to sponsor us, y'all let us know. But it literally tracks every single click. You click on this tab or on this screen, and it literally says, like in my case, Riverside or Slack, and then the person or channel I was talking in. So tell us about why productivity or the lack thereof could be stopping them from getting to $1 million.
Yeah, because here's the thing. You first have to be playing in your zone of genius. And I want you to end your day knowing that you accomplished 1 to 3 things that matter the most. Because here's the thing. If you said, here's the 3 things I need to accomplish, when you accomplish those 3 things, that you can end today, even if you end early and feel great about today and not have the stress about like, I got to work till 4, till 5, till 6, till 7. Like people get that stress versus knowing that if they can accomplish these 3 things, they're great for today and they can stop. I had the stress of, I'm not working 10 to 12 hours. I need to do more and more. I need to do 10 items, 12 items, 13 items. But I wasn't staying in my zone of genius versus the 3 things Richard needs to do today is this, this, and that. Close a deal, build a training, talk with a team member to pump them up, right? To make sure that they're good. If I do those 3 things, nothing else matters. You want to know the challenge of how I solved that? I sat on my front porch, chilling all day, doing nothing else, just writing in my journal for fun, right? And only attended those 3 sessions, and that's all I did that day. Most uncomfortable thing, but it showed me that if I can focus on those 3 things, everything else doesn't matter as much. Because I should delegate it or don't do it.
I'd freak out because I'd be like, okay, I did those 3 things, but now I got more time, so there's something else I could be doing.
Yeah, and the worst word I hate in the English dictionary is enough. I despise that. Enough. Am I doing enough? Am I doing this?
Why do you despise it so much?
Because enough is driving me to try being perfect. Enough is something that I try using to say, I need to do more. I'm recognizing the gap in my day of not being perfect versus understanding the gains that I've made in my day. So there's a book called The Gap versus the Gain. When someone recognized that language from me, it changed my life because they said, you got to go read this book. I bought that book, read it in a night, which took forever. I listened to it, but still took a while. It took like 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours. But I then gave him a report the next day. He says, now you can welcome life in a better way of abundance. The reason why is because no matter how well I did in that day, it wasn't enough. I didn't do enough. I didn't do the best I could. And here's the thing. This is even back before realizing that I have ADHD. I didn't realize till 36. By the way, I'm 36. So I didn't realize until like just last year, like the end of last year, right? Like 7 months ago that I have ADHD. So I've been trying to live this perfect focused life my whole time because that's what we're told everyone does. Everyone's perfect focus and making millions. Okay, well, why can't I? You know what I mean?
Right.
I've sold agencies. I've done all these different things. But then I like to explain ADHD to people is it's like having 30 channels go off in your head, but you don't control the remote. You don't know what's going to happen next.
That is actually true.
Yeah. And so by knowing that and everything else now, how do I build patience and better systems to keep me on track to my 3 things? How do I build up the dopamine and confidence to go do those 3 things? When I get off track, how do I get back on track? What can I do? Right? And so those are the systems I'm building even for myself to be better, but also understanding that when I finish, I'm done and I should be grateful of the gains I've had. And you know how I recognize the gains I've had? I document them. I write them down. Because here's a challenge I would give to you and anyone else that listens to this, right? Do you remember what you had for lunch yesterday? Probably so, right?
Yes.
Takes a second. Do you remember what you had for lunch last Friday?
No.
So here's the thing. If you don't remember last Friday, then you probably don't remember 2 Fridays ago, 3 Fridays ago, 5 Fridays ago, right? I skipped 4. I don't know why. But here's the thing. What happens if you had a win that you had last week? Do you still remember and feel it right now? Or is it gone?
No, I feel it because it was last Monday.
Okay, but 2 Mondays ago, 3 Mondays ago, 4 Mondays ago, those start to dissipate. Because here's the thing. If we were to write down, and I'll just show my notebook again, if we were to write down all the wins that we've had like this, so whenever we feel down and despair or anything else, and we were to remember every freaking time we won, we would be crying tears over how many times we've won in life.
So a wins journal.
A wins journal, a gratitude journal, anything to capture the gains that you've had in life. Capture those moments and go back anytime you feel sad or anything else and just look at them. You would have them stacked on top of each other, just continually grow, and you would realize how much you're achieving. And here's the thing. If you start doing it for the other ones that you're seeing in your family, in your friends, and others in your team members, and you stack all those wins, you would be moving mountains right now. You'd be stacking mountains of wins and gains and just absolutely having a great time in life. But you know what happens? Our horizon of remembrance is short. We barely even remember tomorrow. Some of us can't even think of what we're eating for tonight for dinner, right? So that's the hard thing that happens in life. So do you know how you capture that? Well, I just ruined it. You capture it and document that. Even if you have to voice note it to yourself, you have to do something, but just record this. One challenge I give to everyone in coaching, people share moments of wins in coaching. Do you know what I tell them to do? I want you to record and capture and bottle this moment right now. By bottling this moment, here's what I want you to do. On your calendar, put 90 days from now, a link back to this video so you can remember 90 days ago in the past and the future, right? So we're tying those 2 things together. What was it like to win right now? Because at any moment, if you ever feel down and you can hear yourself of how grateful you are for life and what you've been able to achieve, you can recognize the distance of what you can do to be better because you have seen yourself at a really good status in life. On there, remember what that feels like. Do the best you can.
You know, I feel like I heard this with Dr. Attaway, so shout out to Dr. Attaway.
Good guy.
Okay, this is really good. Okay, let's keep going. So back to my notes. All right, we're on number 3. So why aren't you $1 million agency? You really deep down don't believe it. Mm-hmm. Productivity, or you think I always have to do more and more and more, so not picking the right things to focus on. You said an excuse for both of those. So now I'm scared to ask you because I know you finna crack me up. But what does that look like? Because I'll use myself. Because in my head, I would probably say, actually I wouldn't if this was a year ago, but like, oh, I can make $1 million and yeah, I'm productive.
Okay, so here's my thing for you, right? What would be one of the excuses you would tell yourself that doesn't fit one of those two? And let's boil it back to one of those. Let's
I
connect the
got
dots.
you. Okay, so why I can't make $1 million from my background? None of my friends have made it. Nobody on that same level or age bracket that I know is making it. So how, out of all the people, me?
But are you saying that's a third excuse that we tell ourselves? Because I feel like you're already saying that that's tied to a belief. It's not a productivity issue. It's something that you have never seen before and you didn't grow up with, right? You didn't, what's it called? The silver or golden spoon in your mouth? I don't know what it's called. But like you didn't grow up with that. I didn't grow up with that. So we don't know what that looks like, right? But when you look at the culture and everything else that you grew up in your communities and so forth, you didn't see that in there, right? But with the people you know and everything else, are there others that are doing that that can install that belief in you and build that confidence in you? There's probably one person that could pop up in your head right now that has showed you your true potential at one point in your life. Even if it was just a glimpse, peeled back the curtain. Right?
That's true. That's true.
The scary part that really sucks in life, some people don't get that glimpse of what they really can be because they don't have someone that has ever pumped them up. They have people that tear them down and keep them in a very destructive pattern on there.
Ooh. Say it again. Say it again. Say it again.
So they have people in their life that has had very destructive patterns that keep them stuck in that loop on there. Like for instance, and I love my parents a lot, right? But if I'm going to ask them how to make $1 million and they never made one, why am I asking them for that advice on there? Right? I can ask for the wisdom and guidance on a lot of things in life, but maybe that one, they might have some very scarcity mindsets towards it. Right? And so that's not the person that I should ask for that. Right? I can ask them what helped them to get to where they are today. But at the end of the day, I got to lean or find out something that I can do. But there's been people in my life that helped me to build in my belief and confidence in myself by showing me a mirror of what I'm doing. Right? And showing me how I'm stacking up to get there. It's not clear steps or anything else. Sometimes it feels like we're trying to build a ladder out of leaves that if you step on, they're going to flatten. So how many leaves do you need to stack up to build a step in life? That's what the principles need to show. But here's the thing, and I'll go back to this. Some people never get that curtain open up to see what they really can become. Right?
I so identify this because I was talking with my sister about this yesterday. It was yesterday with my wife. Because we were saying that same thing. Because long story short, we adopted. My mom adopted. And so you think about that, like coming from this background and man, she only knows this type of behavior. Like, what could we do to show her these other possibilities and hope that that will jolt her into, but if you keep making the excuse. Okay. Last one. You said, do they have the belief that their team can do it? Because you know, to your point, hey, I built the company. You know, can't nobody do it as well as I can because I'm the one who went to school for it and this is my vision. That's stopping them from reaching the $1 million
because the thing is they also don't have the resources or the beliefs in themselves, and you haven't transferred that knowledge. Okay, so SOPs and everything else is a transfer of knowledge and power on there. If you can transfer that, you give them more ammo or resources to make a difference. I always ask this simple question to my team: what other resources do you need? Is it other team members, skill sets, training, budget? Like, what do you need? And we go through a couple of those to find out what they need. And I'm asking them to communicate better versus holding it in and thinking they can do everything. Because they now have an example of someone that's done that and it didn't work for them, right? It didn't work for me to hold on 6 jobs. And so now when we ask them to brain dump and we ask for clarity on what they're doing that's in their zone of genius and what's out of bounds, right? They get more clear on this and here's the best release you can ever give a team member. Identify their zone of genius, right? As you identify their zone of genius and you find out what's out of bounds, when you can hire someone to delegate for them and work with them to delegate that off somebody else, and they get more time in their zone of genius, and they see that and they peel back that curtain to see that they no longer have to do that there's someone else that enjoys to do what they don't do, and they collaborate and they work together. Do you know how much joy that person has? Keep in mind, we didn't raise pay at this point. We didn't do anything else. We gave them back their time and showed them how to do this and how to communicate that. You know how big of a difference that makes in their life to see that they no longer have to grudge through or do the boring stuff? I want to, at the end of every day, send people home, right, in a good way, not cut them or anything else. When they close their laptops and they end their day, I want them to go back to be a hero in their family, that know that they did a great job at work today, every day. I don't want them to go back home and they have to decompress and they have to say, man, it was rough and I was doing crap. I hate it. I don't want that for any team member. I want to know when they go home, they're going home with a smile, because I'm dealing with mothers, I'm dealing with fathers, I'm dealing with other people that have other people relying on them. But I want them to go home and be a pillar of a lighthouse in their communities, in their families, saying, I had a freaking great day today and I made a change in the world. And I'm not saying we're changing the world or anything else, but we are in ways, by our team members, by our clients, because our clients are changing local communities and so forth. So it does tie back. Now, if you asked me this whole principle I'm talking about 3 years ago, I could care less. I did not care until I saw the impact it has in others, because my social ability to understand others wasn't there. I felt like I was on this different spectrum of just like horse blinders. This is what I do. Everyone else will follow. We'll make great stuff out of this. But now when I know people are going home and have great times, because I have Facebook friends that are team members and I see them winning at home and they're getting off a little bit early so they can take their families to go do cool things, that's a win. It's not saying, oh, I'm so glad they stayed overtime today to go finish that project. No, them even taking a day off for their birthday and us celebrating their birthday and they're having a great times in the Philippines, that's a win. And we create more wins. Is there stuff we had pop up for them today? But guess what? That can wait, and we can communicate that to our client that can wait. Now, do we tell them the reasons why? No, but we know we're not going to bug this person because they took a day off for their birthday so they can go celebrate and have a party. But we're not going to bug them. You know what I mean? They're going to get that day because they deserve that day.
I love this because I can attest he did do that for me. One of the, not the first things, because the first thing was, Cameron, you need to get them systems and SOPs. But after,
by the way, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Tell your story. This is your episode.
No, it was just funny because I was definitely like, I'm a very big in follow up, and so I was follow up on stuff, and then like Facebook popped up and birthdays and all these things. I'm like, give him the day. Like I was like, put on the brakes, stop, pause, go for it.
I mean, he was just like, hey, you need some SOPs. And he was like, you need to tighten up them processes. So then after I got that, then he was like, why are you doing these things? Do you enjoy doing that? I'm like, no. You know who can help you do that? You need an executive assistant. And I was like, me? And you know, I am here to say 45 days in, or 46 as of today, may go on record for being maybe, I ain't going to say the best hire ever, but she may be top 2. Because, I mean, she's a beast and she's getting better. And I think it was you who told me that, like, the first day you hire them is the worst they're ever going to be. They're going to get better every day. And I mean, that's a whole different thing. But, like, she's killing it right now. So,
yeah.
Okay. All right. So, we spent so much time on the 2 businesses. We didn't even get to you coaching because, of course, a lot of agency owners are listening to this. I would say what are some things they can do to fix their business, but I feel like you, between how to get it ready to be sold, why you're not making the 7 figures, I feel like you've done that.
I got a point for you.
Okay, go.
If you are thinking about coaching or you're in coaching right now, do you know it's the one thing I ask everyone when we do a kickoff call and I remind them of? Pour into us because we're going to pour into you. Don't hold back. Come in honest. If you're not honest yet with yourself, do that first. Then be honest with us. But squeeze that sponge. Let's get every ounce that we can. Do we have to get every single one? No. But I don't want people coming in feeling like they're high and mighty or they're anything else. You're here for a reason. Let us know why we're here to help you. Don't mask it. Pour in as much as you can because then you'll get. Our goal is that for every hour you pour in, you're going to get back tenfold. We want you to be able to maximize your time with everything else. And so that's been a thing that I've been championing recently, is just that thought process. Because there are some people, right, in coaching, and I've seen this in various coaching everywhere, right? So it's not just in the coaching we're in right now. They come in and they ghost. And we're chasing them down. We're playing detective the whole time. It happens. Why? Because of one of those 2 beliefs, which, we won't go back into, a belief or productivity. They thinking that just by purchasing and starting the course and reading some stuff and watching popcorn and not taking notes, that they soak it in and that they're good to go. But I treat it like a personal trainer, is that when we're working with the people we're working with, so it is very high touch, right? And you can attest to it being high touch, right? It's not just like, oh, don't talk to us, and everything else, right? It's one of those things that as we're working through this, it's just almost like a personal trainer that can help correct the technique and everything else that you're doing on there. Most people aren't coachable, they have too much ego or pride in the way of being able to change.
Even
So
if they're paying you money?
money's not the thing. That's the craziest part. It doesn't matter how much pain happens. You can be paying $1, you can be paying $10,000 a month. It doesn't matter if the person's not willing to change, because that money hasn't dictated how much they're being willing to coach, right? I got coached one time on something that I disagreed with, but I made sure to be vocal about it versus, oh, this person sucks, I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? Be vocal with where you are, because here's the thing that I like doing, and I think you've seen this several times. I like to identify the very beginning level and the very mastery level of what it is, and then where you are between with everything that we're talking about, because I need to start with where you are to help you take the next couple steps so I can get you crawling, walking, and running. I'm not trying to say, oh, you're starting stage 2, start running, or assume, based on what you're saying, you're halfway there. Because guess what? There could be stuff before the halfway point that they're still struggling with that we need to go and address so that they can move forward with confidence. Most people that join coaching or anything else or masterminds, they come in what I call peacocking it. There's boom, I'm the best ever, versus I'm going to come honest and vulnerable. And I've been in mastermind groups and everything else before where that was the case. And so I struggled in there because I felt like I had to be the king of everything else because that's what everyone else is doing. Nice suits, traveling to Denver for this mastermind. I won't say mastermind's name, but like all these different things. And I felt like I couldn't be real and ask questions because everyone else knows how to do it. So it didn't work out for me. And then when they started getting real with me about what I needed to do, I want to in turn turn that for others into where I can help them achieve those same goals that I was able to achieve through mentorship and coaching.
But what about those people who are like, well, Cam, I'm not trying to hit $1 million yet. I'm just trying to get to the 30 and 40 grand. Got this idea. I'm pretty sure the offer is tight, but it's taking me a while to get there. What do we tell these people? Because I feel like, and this is just from even the number side, how we deal with a client that's below 20 grand is way different than the one that's at 100 grand per month. So like, what would you encourage them to do or focus on or tweak so that they can get to those $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 months?
Yeah. So wherever they're at now, remember, it's going back to the principle. What do they need to change now? What do they need to let go to get the next part? The hard part is if they try and do this on themselves, they start running the same lap. Now, I don't know if you've ever, like, because me, I'm not a big runner, but if you ever run a lap and you run 4 of them, you get a mile on a track, right? But sometimes in business, we run lap 1 and we have to repeat lap 1. But we're not noticing that we're repeating lap 1. We feel like we're getting a mile, but we're staying in that first lap on there. I want someone like a mentor or coach to be able to come in there, pull them back, put their arm around them and be like, are you seeing this from what I'm seeing from you? Are you seeing what you're doing so that you can get the next spot? Because some of the things that were happening is, like, for instance, in my agency, I am trying to sell right now to where a virtual assistant can sell high ticket without having to do like all these things in there. I'm trying to give the answers as much as possible and be as transparent as possible to the people that buy from our agency, right? Versus, hey, I will always have to hire this expert closer that has 10 years of experience just to close what I'm closing now. How can I reduce that barrier? And so one of our goals is, how do we make it simpler to buy? How do we make it simpler to move forward? If I can make that simpler to move forward, then we'll make a difference on there. But what happens is, who does that? Richard doesn't think that way. It's just like going back to the wife principle here, right? I can think of 1,000 ways that are chaos and ADHD filled, that are all shiny with dopamine, when they're not the one true thing to do, because the people I want to trust are people that have done it before. And that's what coaching and mentorship can do for you. If you go into coaching mentorship, whatever it is, you can get as hardcore as you want about anything else. But if you believe in that they can help you out, track the gains that you've had with them and what changes you made in your life. If you're making changes, stay there and keep working. If you're not making changes, find something better on there. But I can't tell you how many people say, well, this just didn't work out for me, but I barely touched it. Whose fault is that then? I have seen it several times in different scenarios.
Well, I think that's a good stopping point because I want to go into some other stuff, but I'm like, we could talk about how you keep, the fire going with Babe, date nights, but I already know the answer, just what's the newest taco place, so no point in asking that.
We did that for Valentine's, by the way. We got a taco from every spot. It was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, man. Okay, here, let's wrap it up like this.
Cool.
If people are like, bro, Richard, that's me. Like, you describe me in like that transition or trying to work with my agency or scaling it or SOPs. How can they reach you? So again, tell them your name of the company or whatever you want to push right now. What's the links? How can they reach out if they just wanted to connect just because you're the coolest person ever, or they want to meet up to do tacos? Like, tell them how they can meet with you, how you can help them, the whole nine. This is your time.
Yeah, so here's the best part, because I always feel like it's hot one. Like, promote something and everything else. I don't know how much big things I have to promote right now. I'll tell you the agency group that we're in right now for coaching is Prospecting on Demand. Find us there. I will be there, right? So come find out more about that if you're in the agency space and want to learn more. If anything else, when this gets promoted, anything else, just put my personal Facebook profile on there and just message me. I'm always there for that. The reason why I say that, because if I drive them to one page, what happens next year when it rebrands or something else? Will we redirect it? Yeah. But I think the one thing that needs to happen from this is that if you are feeling the moments of like passion of what you want to do and everything else, conversion happens through conversation. So if you want to talk about this and where you're going through, I'll give everyone that listens to this, you can ask me 100 questions a day. Doesn't mean I'll get back to them all right away, but I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. This is what I love doing. I believe relationships are the highest form of currency. So reach out. So wherever this is posted, let's drop in a link there. I'll share that with you, and we'll make sure that you can connect.
All right, let's review it. So, notes. All right, 20 years in the game. Sold his first agency, which was Google and Facebook ads agency. Some of the big things he learned from that whole selling acquisition process, that he was doing 6 full-time roles poorly. The first value, which this guy was so nice, by the way, to tell him, hey, right now, if we were to buy you, you'd only get like 250 grand. But if we do you a track and allow you to work on it and put these different things in place, you can literally get 1 to 2 million. So how you structure is important, and make sure that there's clarity on when you leave. What are the expectations? Am I completely out? Do you want me back in a consulting basis, etc.? Things, how I want to word this one. Things that are the same from 20 years ago is channel the demand that's already there and solve the problem. And now over 80% is mobile first. So of course, y'all know that, make it optimized. Things he learned in company too, which is the current one. Try not to be the leader on anything and build it around other people once you've perfected that sales method or close method. And try your best to let go of ego. Don't let the company wins be all about you, but let the company wins be about your team succeeding on that close or handling that client call without you. He talked about when you're doing that, he shouted out Dan Martell, teach not tell. What are top 3 trainings you need from me? That's what you're asking your top level CFO people or C level people, and build a training on what they need, not just what you're kind of peeping in and seeing from the outside. Why are you not $1 million agency? And we spent the whole back half of the episode on this. Believe people that aren't $1 million agency believe that they can't really do it somewhere subconsciously in your mind somewhere. They think they're being productive, but they're not actually doing things that move the needle. They have an excuse for those two. So in other words, you're blind to the fact that it's those two. And or they don't have the belief that their team can do it at that level that they can, which we all know is true and false. True because you're the only Cameron, for example. But you can get them to do it at least 95%. So much there. We talked about the mental health, the transitioning when you're selling things, and what does that make you feel like. It was so much in this episode. You guys need to check it out. Share it with a buddy. I feel like if you're an agency, just hit the share button and share it with another agency. So many good things here, guys. These are the types of people we want to bring on the episodes that are going to be your people that you can relate to, understand your journey, your struggles, and how to keep the balance. So Richard, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, if you want to connect with them, reach out to them or even join them in the coaching side, right? Because you could be getting this on a weekly basis if you just join this coaching. I'm just
daily basis, am I right?
I ain't want to put you out there like that, but low-key facts. So with all that being said, guys, we're going to end this episode. Make sure you share, like, subscribe. Until the next episode, we'll see you guys. Take care of yourselves.